Greetings, Dr. Jeffrey Scott here. This is my weekend market update. This is part two. This is my stocks to watch video. As I mentioned when I did Friday's video, I asked the question, was Friday's exuberance irrational? And that really is a big play here because after the move we saw on Friday, one would expect this market just to keep going higher, and it possibly will. But we may have a little bit of a pullback related to being a little bit stretched before then. And maybe we'll see more rotation as the Qs lag this past week, and they're not the ones that are stretched. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Again, my email address is marketmripro@gmail.com. My Google group is called Top Down Trader. If you like this, hit subscribe, hit the alarm so you know when I post it. If you really like it, give me a thumbs up. I need more of those so that Google actually shows this to people that aren't my friends. This is for educational purposes only. Anything I recommend should be taken in the spirit of education, not investment advice. The intent of the video is to demonstrate the tools of top-down analysis and how I apply them. Trading involves risk. You are solely responsible for any investment decisions you make. I may own or intend to buy or sell any stock mentioned in this report. Trading stocks and options should be considered risky. You should always consult with your financial advisor before making trades. And I have tools in multiple platforms, but I'm an independent trader. If you're looking for stocks and docs video with wealth charts, it'll be out um, sometime on Monday morning before the market opens, but stick around, you'll see similar things here. If you want like live meetings, and I like doing live meetings, I'm doing my next one October 26th and 7th in lovely Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I'm doing it at the Palm Beach Gardens full service Marriott. I cut a deal 155 a night. It's 1250 for the meeting. You won't touch your wallet for food while you're here until after the meeting concludes on Monday because I'm going to feed you breakfast and snacks on Sunday and Monday. I'll take you on a dinner cruise so you can enjoy the water here if it is nice day on Sunday. And 2 packed days of education. If you come, I will give you a $400 rebate off of any of my tools that I control price on. And I hold this back to back. John Person has a meeting that's separate fee on October 24th and 25th. It will be a small group, probably less than 10 people in the room. There'll be a bunch of people online. Love to have you either way. I like the people in the room because you can't pay for the networking that you do when you're there and getting to spend time during breaks and one-on-one helping and teaching. My Google group is called Top Down Trader. You get an extra $100 if you join on discounts and for tools, I should say. And you get some insight from me that I don't share on YouTube or anywhere else. Earnings and news, we talked about this a couple days ago. We got a lot of Fed heads. I think the market overdid it on Friday, is my opinion. Here we are, a market that looks like it's going to sell off. It's going down. Um, a lot of people were putting out very bearish videos and comments on Wednesday and Thursday. And Powell actually was interpreted as being much more dovish. I can see that actually. I think that's probably correct. But I don't know if he meant to have the markets react the way they did, which was with a pretty significant rise. Because the markets did go up crazy. And I mean, took my long-term money, which it's long-term for a reason. I sometimes let it um, sit during modest pullbacks, and it was down a bit. Now I'm at all-time highs on my long-term money. So it was a bizarre day. Will they talk it back? Well, you're going to have Fed heads on Monday, Fed head on Thursday, and so you'll have plenty of time. And then the most important news of the week has got to be the PCE, although there's a number of things before them, but Friday should be big. And we still got some earnings with this, especially with this company called NVIDIA. It represents 8% of the S&P 500. It represents with Apple and Microsoft, I think 25, 22% of the, no, it's not 22, it's closer to 20%, I think, of the, you have to add a couple more to get to 25% of the S&P 500, but it's 8% of that or 9% of that. Imagine if it's up 10% after earnings. The markets will go crazy. But what if it's down? If it represents 10% of the S&P 500 and NVIDIA is down 10%, what does that mean for the market? So it'll be an interesting week. It's a judgment call to hold stocks over earnings dates. It's bad judgment to not know when your stock's earnings date is scheduled. And I'm sure, like many people on this call, my number one holding is NVIDIA. And it's gotten big, not because I bought it when it was expensive, but because I bought it and have held it for years. And then when it split, I got a lot of shares. So it'll be interesting to see how it does. This was my danger signal that I showed on Friday, one of them. And when you have this, this is from Warden, by the way, 13-week new high, new low ratio. You see the score, 99.66. That is almost, if not at, an all-time record. And when I see that, look what happened here. Here, you got a little pullback, and then you subsequently rolled over. Here a little pullback, here a little pullback, here a little pullback, here just a little pullback. Every major, just like the Hindenburg signal major corrections. This is a fast acting that shows pullbacks in the market. When you get this extended, market's going down. More information about Market MRI Pro from a technical perspective, coding at marketmripro.com. If you want to know all about the program, you want to buy it, you want to register the meeting, contact me at marketmripro@gmail.com. If you don't have the product and you register for the meeting, I'll give you a month trial so you can check it out, but more importantly, you can use it along with me at the meeting. I'm sure I'll be using my Metastock app, Wealth Charts, TradeStation, among others, TradingView at the meeting as well. This is not the hotel we're having it at. I have had it here in the past, but it's too expensive. However, if you want to give your spouse a nice present, come down Saturday, spend Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night on the beach, and your spouse will love you because it is a gorgeous beach. And I should know that well because I lived 2 doors down for quite some time. On to the charts. So I'm not going to go through everything that I did on Friday. That would be probably overdoing it. But a few highlights that I want to call out. Timing model, the weekly, as we'll see, and I didn't load this first. I should have loaded my windows. Yeah, you could see here the weekly model. You could see some really cool things here. You could see the S&P had an all-time high this week. You could see the Qs got close to opening at an all-time high and sold off. The diamonds all-time highs, and the Russell not an all-time highs, but the Russell is really had a big move as well. This green line here, green and red line, that's the buy sell. On my timing model, which is not subjective, it's objective here. Long-term weeklies, we are in a buy. When I flip that to the dailies, it'll take a second. Here you go. You can see the beautiful pullbacks and breakout here on the spider. Did not take out old highs, but a nice move on the Qs. Gapped up and set all-time highs on the diamonds and a big move up, gap up on the Russell. It was enough to flip everything to a buy except for the Qs. So we have 1 negative, 3 positive on the daily. We got 4 positive on the weekly. I'm not going to show you the monthly. They're 4 positive. So my model says long term, we're probably going higher. The dominant trend here is higher. But short term, we still could see a pullback, especially with that one, the Qs being in a sell signal. So not totally out of the water. On the daily briefing, just reviewing, a massive Friday, which turned the week around. Bitcoin up 4%, Russell approaching 4%, diamonds about 2%, Qs and spiders 1.5%, dollar down 1%, and the VIX down a lot. Massive day. And when you look at the 5-day change, you could see Russell led 3.39, diamonds 158, spiders 0.29, and the Qs were actually down on the week almost 1%. So market rotation into the small and mid caps was pretty significant. The buckets showed a big shift to the right, and we're starting to build a number of stocks above the Bollinger Bands. The biggest number being 16% of the Russell 2000. That means that's 1 out of 6 pretty much stocks in the Russell 2000 closed above their Bollinger Bands. That is abnormal. And it gets to 25, it's almost a reversal signal. So let's see what happens there. Alone, not yet a reversal, but when I look at that 13-week, I get a little nervous. My market breadth tool gave me these things here called Eurekas and a Bango. That is a lot of exuberance. Now, when you see a Eureka, as we did here at the bottom, I get really excited. But the idea of a Eureka coming in the top, I think this is Greenspan's irrational exuberance all over again. And it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous that maybe we're going to have to pull back here. And I had thought we'd pull back to the 50. This is the NYSE composite, the NASDAQ composite here. And we're just getting further away. That pullback to the 50 now becomes a move from 21, say 21,200 down to 2,500 to 700, still only a 3 or 4% move. I still am nervous, even though we had such a day on Friday. And I don't think we're coming down here, and I don't think we're coming down here. But a snapback to this 50 and a retest, which has happened before, would not surprise me, nor would it overly disappoint me. If these Hindenburg omens predict a pullback of sorts, they're pretty damn good. You don't get a major pullback without a signal. The other 3 out of 4, it's a pullback of modest proportions, not a breakout. So the Eureka after Hindenburg, the Eureka at all-time highs is part of my concern. The other concern I have is when I look at the market breadth here, let's just look at this guy right here, 99%. That's the 13-week new high low on the spiders. 99% on the S&P 1500. And then it backs down to 90 on the NASDAQ composite. And then it's 99 on the Russell. Overbought big time. And I think that's concerning. So I am expecting, despite all the exuberance in the market, to see a quick snapback um, to ease off some of this overboughtness, but I do think we're going higher, especially with the knowledge of rate cuts. Now, just because I think we should have a quick snapback and maybe to the 50s and work off some of this exuberance doesn't mean the market could care less what I think. And I have to trade the market we have. And, we could just keep going up from here to the moon and beyond. What a massive day we had across the board on Friday. So I think we got overbought too quick. I would be thrilled to see us go sideways. We could go just sideways for 2 or 3 days and do some rotation and ease off that overboughtness too. Maybe move back into some of those NASDAQ 100 stocks. But wow, what a day. So that tempers me when I get to the stocks. But since I do think we're going higher, I'm going to talk longs. So first thing I want to go to is my impulse view. And you notice it was down to 35.31 this week. And the reason for that is it's the same bucket, NASDAQ stocks, NYSE, and Amex. I put a filter $1 and 100,000 shares traded. And so what happens is after a series of bad days, which we were having, the number gets smaller. Each one of these stocks in my index or my list are put into indexes and industry groups or sectors and industry groups. And so from a top-down perspective, this is not the S&P 500 list, and it's not the S&P 1500 list. It's a pretty massive list. And I'm going to look at 2-day momentum. And there's so many different ways that we could look at it. But last week it was solar stocks, and I think home builders looked good as well. Let's see what we got here. 2-day momentum. Let's take the top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That gives me 138 stocks from the top 10 industry groups in the market as of close on Friday. Let's go down here and let's get a 500,000 and a $5 minimum. Hit OK. I got 85 stocks. Let's add pullback and uptrend. Okay, now I got 46 stocks, and now let's rank them by the impulses. Gap, volume, breakout, momentum. All right, this one is super expensive. It's a beautiful stock. Ubiquity Inc. It's a semiconductor play, I believe. Kind of a loose uptrend, significant pullback, and I don't know if they had earnings on Friday. They did, and look at this. They had a 58% surprise on earnings, 19% surprise on revenue, growth, nice, triple digit growth, or double digit growth rather, on, yeah, triple digit growth on the quarter over quarter change, much bigger than their PE. No wonder this thing snapped back so far. Its high-low jump is not too high. Why? Because these indexes, the not the index, but the moving averages are pretty close together, so it's not fanned out. And you could see here it had a CPR, a gap, volume, breakout, momentum, and look at the breakout of relative strength in OBV. Wowzer, it's a $500 stock. I bet it becomes a $600 stock, but it's an expensive stock. URI, and I'm going to put that over in, well, I'm not going to do that. I've got an issue there still. URI, um, sort of stair step up and a pullback, up and a pullback, up and a pullback, and it looks like its next step higher. This one, the fundamentals I didn't think looked as good. Earnings are not to October. The last two they missed. It's an infrastructure play, and every time you see something being built, either at a condo, hotel, roadside construction, look at the equipment. A lot of them are being rented from URI. You can always look here if you want to check the news, and if you really want to see what's next for the stock, you just click on that and it pulls up from Zacks. Um, can it continue? I'm not going to go read that now, but that's all built in for you, and the program all comes right out of the box, as does data, which can get you down to minute data. So again, another expensive stock. I love the pattern. It's kind of expensive. Travel and leisure. Um, So travel stocks, I was reading about cruise ships today, and the bullish information I was reading about was how many people are taking cruises. The bearish was that the supply is going to probably exceed the growing demand, but cruises are hot. This is a travel company, a beautiful breakout here. You could probably even go and take a trend line from here up as well. So a wedge pop breakout. We were worrying about seasonality here because we're in a tough time. It's kind of flat. And you could see you had a CPR, volume breakout, momentum, relative strength, and OBV. So this is another nice looking chart. PMHC, Taylor Morrison Homes. Um, you know, homes are hot. I bought Lennar maybe a week ago, and it's positive now after it pulled back. Um, I'd want to see it break above here. I liked KB Homes too, KBH. I think home builders will be ones that benefit. One of the industries that will benefit from the lower rates, and KB Homes. Now, these things have not been fundamentally great. You could see they've had an earnings hiccup and a revenue hiccup. But if rates are falling, I mean, you might see some improvement in the home builders. TFII, don't know what this one does. Let's see if we can tell here. Freight, upbeat quarter two. Again, I don't know what they do, but I guess they're involved in some type of freight business. Look at here. Earnings were out July 28th with a surprise upper and a revenue surprise. Not very exciting numbers. I'd rather buy above the 200. SWK kind of looks like KB Homes, um, and breaking out above the 200, relative strength in OBV, like that pattern as well. So one thing I like to do is to start and work down a list of top industry groups. I talked about cruise ships. Royal Caribbean, look at the moves down here. Volume breakout momentum of CPR, they're in an EMS, and the relative strength and the OBV are both turning up. I like that. Pulte Homes, breaking out. Meritage Homes, breaking out. LGI Homes, not yet. And like I said, the one I bought was Lennar, and it originally popped because of Buffett's investment in one of its competitors, and then it popped again with the market craziness on Friday. But again, something you'd expect to do well in the setting of um, rate cuts. Another way of doing that could have been, let's just take the percentage moves, and the top three were energy, tech, and cyclical. And then let's look at the top 10 in those groups. One, two, three. It gives you a whole different picture because look at the energy stocks, the solar stocks coming in. And then I left the same filters on. Let's go through. There's UI again. There's Taylor Homes, Solar Edge. Now, fundamentally, it's been losing money. Revenue is kind of, I guess it's growing a little bit, but something's going on here. And are they going up because expiration of credits, people are moving in? Are they going up because clean energy actually does better under Trump than it did under Biden? I mean, you could see the problem here is it's the words, the words. But now I'm seeing stuff about solar and data centers. The one that I'm playing didn't do so well this past week, although it had a nice recovery on Friday, and that was First Solar, and maybe it's giving us another setup to buy here. But Solar Edge looks okay. Solar Edge breaking out. Seadrill, oil services. Now, there were a lot of oil services stocks that popped on my list over the weekend. I was a little bit surprised. For example, and this is beautiful, breaking out of the 200, breaking out of a trend line, EMS, CPR, volume breakout momentum out of a squeeze, good relative strength at OBV. Is this the time they're running? You could add to that Noble's Energy breaking out, Neighbors trying to break out, hasn't broke out yet. There are other solar stocks here. Shoals is a solar stock breaking out here. Now, again, seasonality is not a great time this year, and that has to, I think, maybe keep you a little bit aware. End phase much further down in its pattern, and I thought I saw a couple other Jinx, JKS, riding up its 50 pullback and maybe going to break out here. So solar looks okay. The housing stocks are being juiced by the lower rates. Anything else that would be up here that I'd want to show you? Nope. Yeah, I don't know what Knowles does, but I love the chart. See if we can tell from over here. Specialty electronic components, including high performance capacitor RF filters, advanced med tech microphones, and balanced armature speakers. Okay, don't really understand what any of that stuff is, but Knowles is in the tech space. And let's look at its fundamentals. We're going to compare 25 versus 26. Growth is kind of flat. Don't know why it's running up, but I like the pattern, the pullback, and the breakout. So that's another way I might identify some stocks. Cars almost looks like that's breaking out there as well, cars.com. So that's another way of looking at the market. Then we have the bottoms up approach. Let's kill my filters here for now. Oh, I could have left those in. And I go back to that impulse list and I can do the same thing. Pull back and uptrends 5 and 500. And this market's been so strong, I only want those above the 200-day moving average. And you could see Let's filtering through. That we're left with 562 stocks. So all of these are uptrends. Some will be longer than others. All of them have had a recent pullback. Let's just look at one at the top and the price and volume. So here's UI, kind of top of the list again. We know this is a good stock because we've already looked at it. Ubiquity. Here's its uptrend. You know, it's clearly in an uptrend. Here's the pullback with the breakout. Zoom, not an old name, but an older name that did well in the not the dot-com, in the COVID area because we all work from home. We still use it. I mean, even though my company is supposed to be back in the office 3 days a week is what I mandated. I have not enforced it, and probably if I had to terminate people who weren't in 3 days a week, I'd terminate my entire workforce except for a small number of us that are in the main office and then some of the satellites where they have to be in the office to do their work. So we still use a lot of Zoom. Powerful breakout. I believe it was on earnings. You could see 10% growth, a significant surprise. And sometimes it's not the growth that determines whether we go up or down, it's how big the surprise is, and then there's a whisper number. Now, I'm not sure this is a name that I'm that interested in, to be honest, because there's a lot of competition in the field. I could read about it here. In fact, I could even read their earnings call. Somewhere down here will be the earnings transcripts. But a big move nonetheless. And if we just throw a weekly on this just for grins, this thing's been kind of flat for a long time. And every time it's tried to make this run, it's failed. So, you know, it's interesting. It's a breakout. Um, it's not my favorite one. ZG, Zillow Group. How many people are like me that are always looking at Zillow every day to look for something nicer and better? Nice breakout. I believe it was also on earnings. Nope, not on earnings. So what was the story here? Summertime season, lower rates probably. This is from 8:23 on Friday is a time to buy. Are you recovering? You're not alone. Probably for the same reason that we saw the home builders up. You know, excitement about potential for increased shopping. Now, I don't know the difference between Zillow Group and Zillow Group C. This one's priced a little different, patterns pretty much the same. XPO is trucking logistics and breaking out here. And again, what I'm looking for is not just a technical breakout here. I'm looking for the volume. I'm looking, here's a CPR, but what I'm really looking is this move here. And this green line is my secret weapon. Thank you, Chris Wilson from, I believe, Alabama, showed this to me a decade ago or more. Relative strength of the stock versus the spider moving up over the moving average. Here is OBV. Lot to like in this chart. XPO. Um, this is a regional bank. Some of the regional banks looked really good this weekend on my review, good volume. And what I read about and saw in other places, sorry about that, I forgot to put my phone on silent. Um, all right, so I was just saying that they'll benefit from the house if there's a housing boom or housing turn up because a lot of the regional banks write those mortgages. VNet, don't know what they do, technology. Um, here's your uptrend, at least back to April. Before that, it was in a downtrend. A lot of activity, pull back, running the 50 on the weekly, but here on the daily, does it look like it's breaking out? Man, it could be. Could be. VLY, another one of these regional banks. I believe ditto here as well. So there's your URI. One thing that looked interesting here is Tesla. Um, Tesla earnings are not to October. Fundamentally, it's hard to love Tesla, but the self-driving module thing may really revolutionize when they get their final product out. So that's one way I like to look and identify stocks. As you can see, we're seeing good stock patterns. And then my secret weapon in this program is I'm going to turn off the pullback filter. And what I'm going to add is this 2 days momentum up. And there's 9. So let's look at these, and then I'll go through some of the other stocks I like for the weekend. Sunoco. Um, when will energy turn up is now the time. There's been some more saber rattling by Iran. Rate cuts might stimulate the economy a bit. And I am under weighted energy. Here's a company that pays a 4.28% dividend. Its revenues are pretty steady. It's going to have a 68 cents, which is not great, versus a dollar. So we're still going to be minus on earnings. But are people starting to think to go back into energy? Goldman Sachs loves 3 Great White North high yield energy stocks. So when I look at a weekly, you can see how energy has not done much of late. But is it getting ready to break out? I like SU here. The key story here are these 2 dots above the yellow line. Those are my momentum signals. And one thing that we talk about a lot on my videos is when I see 2 momentums signals in a row, it's usually a sign of a stock that's about to begin a run. Positive on the relative strength in OBV and certainly not extended. NDSN um, had I won't say a failed breakout on Thursday, because it closed still up significantly on the day, a big gap. But you never like things that close at the bottom of where it gapped up. However, this is where it gapped up to at the bottom of the day. It had a nice follow through day on Friday. So if you look at why did it gap up, had a bit of a surprise on earnings, not so much on revenue. It pays a little bit dividend. Don't know anything about it, but I'll consider that follow through. And it's got my 2 blue dots. LYTS, LSI Industry Technology. Again, a very impressive move, negating the fact that it closed at the bottom of the gap up day. I think this reverses it. Don't know what it does. Again, usually see that after earnings. So the earnings were for Thursday rather. Thursday? Yep. And again, a big surprise, and that's probably what's driving it. Another big energy play, this is Chevron. What does it do on dividend? 4.5% dividend, $6.76 a year. It's a great dividend, but you see the revenue is kind of flat. Actually, the earnings are flat and the revenue is kind of flat as well. Again, I think at some point people will decide if they need to increase the multiple on energy and they'll go higher. One that I like a lot is AMLX, not a generics play. Sideways base, breakout here. Volume breakout, momentum out of the squeeze, and it's got what I like to see in relative strength and OBV. I liked it on Thursday too, but I liked it more on Friday when it took out what I thought might be short-term resistance. AMLX looks good. One that I'm currently in, and I wrote it down here painfully because by the time I looked at it on the big down day, it was after hours and it's come back up, and that's a pretty quick recovery. Uranium play. Again, all of these have to have 2 momentum days. UMAC, Unusual Machines, they're into drones, breaking out of 2 different trend lines, relative strength and OBV. This one's been on a couple of calls. Um, Up FinTech Holdings, nice breakout here. I think it's a Chinese FinTech play. Buy at your own risk. And then AAOI, the 2 drops. Less enthused here because I think, let's look, it might do fine, but I'm going to have to take out that trend line before I get interested. So off this list, I like SU. if it takes out the trend line. You could say the same thing about Chevron. Um, I like AMLX a lot, and Tiger is interesting to me. So I put together a list of stocks that I call potential longs. It's not that there's only one. I got to take off my filters. When you don't see what you expect to see, it's because you got filters on. And there were a lot. I'm not going to go through all of them. Let me call out some of the highlights. The airline stocks are moving. And again, it's another area that I'm underweighted. And you can see it's been good to be underweighted. But it's breaking out over the 200 and that relative strength turned up. Here's Amolex. Amazon looked ugly on Thursday, but had a nice day on Friday. I'll be watching that one. Um, Probably could buy it right here, sitting, pull back to the 50. Obviously, it's above the 50 here because it had a strong day. App has been a great stock. I've ridden it a couple of times. Just pull back to the 17 here. That looks interesting. AS, American Sports. You could probably find somewhere to put a line in here. And this thing is breaking out of what has been resistance. Let's see when the earnings come out. Earnings are out. Look at the surprise on earnings. You're going to have 23 versus 14. That's over 50% earnings. I think this one looks like it wants to go higher. American Sports. CCL, I showed you Royal Caribbean. Similar to the other one I was showing you, you're breaking out here. Bank One, look at this pullback to the 50. One of my favorite places to buy stocks off of. There's so many here. Google, pullback. So I'm really stuck here. Those Hindenburgs, the overboughtness, and some great setups all at the same time. Bet we see more rotation and the markets don't pull back much. Helix is another oil services stock breaking out, kind of low in its pattern. HP, another boring name, but boring names can make money too. Break out above that line, I'd be real interested. I got taken out of, I got back in. This thing and why I'm a sucker for earnings, and this one's got great earnings coming up. It's had great earnings here and great revenue growth. Bit miner changing, Bitcoin miner now becoming a data center play, energy play. There's that KB Homes we talked about. Of the gold stocks, one of my favorite one is KGC. We've talked about that a while. KeyBank was another one that had a nice breakout today. Just going down my list to see if there's anything else I want to show you. Rocket Lab, breakout above that would get me interested. Roku, I just don't know how to value the stock in my mind because I have them. I don't pay them any money. I just bought their box. But now they've got their own channels and they must get some piece of streaming because this one looks like it's ready to break out. My big winner of the year has been SE. Doesn't look like a big winner there, but let me put your W on. Woohoo. Nice stair stepping its way to heaven. Why'd I put it there? Because it looks like it's breaking out again. Shopify, another big pullback and a reversal candle on Friday. Toast, I've been in it for a while, then I got stopped out. Do I want to go back in? Have to clear the 50. And then I WPM silver has been outperforming gold of late. Here's a mostly silver play that you can buy breaking out off of the 50. So a lot of really good looking stocks. And again, how do I play this? This thing here bothers me a lot because you will see a pullback. Um, but maybe it's just another few day pullback and we run up. I would have been so much happier if this occurred over the next 5 days instead of Friday alone, because it made us short-term overbought. So let's hope we get sideways consolidation, ease up the overbought, and go higher. It's certainly possible. Have a great week in the market. I'll be back Monday night. Hope you guys like these videos. Lots of stocks to look at. Give me feedback. You like him, you don't like him. Tell me what I could do better. Tell me what you don't want. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of the Sunday.